Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on Vocational and Education Training Week, together with Eurocommerce and the European Movement International. I'm Christelle Delberg, Director General of Eurocommerce, and I will be introducing this session. Vocational and education training programs are very important. They provide students with essential skills, they enhance their employability, they support their professional development. But they also contribute to companies' competitiveness, and they offer many advantages for retailers and wholesalers. Attracting and retaining talent and skills today is an essential part of building economic resilience and the transformation. We welcome the Commission's focus during this particular week, and the European Year of Skills, and we hope that the movement towards vocational and educational training will continue. Eurocommerce, we are the European Umbrella Association for Retail and Wholesale. Our sector is the first largest private employer in Europe, with no less than 26 million Europeans working in our sector. And we are also one of the sectors that attracts young people, as 1 in 5 young Europeans starts their career in retail and wholesale. Retailers and wholesalers offer multiple opportunities, mainly for local jobs, including in rural areas, stable and specialized jobs, varied, like direct selling, like in brick and mortar stores, like in online retail, and offer also very transferable skills. Today, we're in the midst of a skills and crisis and a talent battle. Many industries are looking for talent to fill new roles, but in our sector, this is particularly acute. More than 40% of respondents to a survey last year cited difficulty finding talent with the right skills to lead the digital and sustainability transformation as a major difficulty. This comes on top of the fact that our sector has long been facing a skills shortage in many areas, such as IT specialists, such as lorry drivers, or in-store staff, including bakers and butchers. Of course, this is without mentioning the general lack of digital skills. The situation for SMEs, so small and medium-sized enterprises, is particularly worrying. A recent Eurobarometer on skills shortages, recruitment and retention strategies in SMEs reveals that skills shortages hold back business activities for 63% of SMEs. They also inhibit their efforts on digitalization for 45% for SMEs and greening. The sector we've had 5 to 10 years ago is vastly different from the sector we have today, and it will be completely different in 10 years' time. There's an acute need for modernized vocational and education training systems, taking into account our current and future skills needs of retailers and wholesalers, and deliver on continuous learning, upskilling, and reskilling. At Eurocommerce, we're committed to advance the skills agenda and have joined efforts. We have joined a skills partnership together with our trade union partner, Europa. We're also looking forward to working with the European Commission on the follow-up to the industry strategy, which will result in an actionable plan to improve the future resilience, sustainability, and digitalization of the retail ecosystem. We're pleased that this process will focus on skills and labor shortages, and we call for action and commitments by companies, education providers, and governments to make the changes needed to be fit and ready for the future. The webinar today is a chance to discuss vocational training, vocational skills, but also the need for nurturing a culture of lifelong learning so that we can match the needs for our retail and wholesale companies with the education and the training paths that can lead and support employees. My colleague Lina Whitaker will be moderating the discussion. And now I'm very pleased to pass on the floor to Aimé Duprat-Maccabees from the European Movement International.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Christelle, and thank you all for joining this joint event organized with Eurocommerce in the context of the VT Week. I'm Aimé Duprat, Policy and Advocacy Officer at EMI, and I want to extend my thanks again to Eurocommerce for the organization of this very timely event and also for the successful partnership that we have with them. So I'll shortly introduce the European Movement International for those of you who might not know it. So we are the largest pan-European network of organizations dedicated to advancing European integration, cooperation, and unity. We have a history going back to 1948, and we are now present in more than 34 European countries. And we have a diverse membership that's composed of both national branches and international organizations. And those range from civil society organizations, youth organizations, NGOs, trade unions, academia, to the four main pro-European political parties. The topic of skills and education is extremely important for organizations, especially at such a time of labor shortages and skill gaps in our European economies, as Christelle mentioned. And already back in 2017, we developed a policy position on the topic of youth unemployment and skills, where we strongly highlight the need to link education to the labor market. And in this respect, vocational education and training, so VET, is an excellent opportunity for work-based learning experiences, especially in countries where it has not been yet well established. And VET offers a dual objective, contributing to employability and economic growth, while responding to broader societal challenges, such as promoting social cohesion. I really look forward to exploring this topic further with such great panelists today, and also to hear the thoughts of the audience later during the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, Christelle, for the introduction. So as Christelle mentioned, my name's Lina Whitaker and I'm a director here at Eurocommerce, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. Before we go on to introduce the panel, I'd like to just first of all invite our guest from the European Commission, Anna Carrero, to provide some insights on how the Commission is also elaborating on how businesses and vocational education institutes can work together. Anna is a Deputy Head of Unit in the Vocational Education and Training Directorate General of Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion of the European Commission, and previously has been responsible for promoting the modernisation of the labour market, skills and social protection systems in Spain. So Anna, please, the floor is yours.
Many thanks for inviting me to this event. This is a very special week. As you were saying, we are putting the full spotlight on vocational education and training this week to promote it as an effective career and learning pathway. And all efforts at EU, national, regional, and local level are very much welcome. So this event comes with the perfect timing. And this year, it is also embedded in the European Year of Skills, as vocational education and training is also aligned with the objectives that we are trying to achieve, which are basically to cater for the skills needed for the labor market, match people's aspiration with labor market needs, and more and better investments in skills. So all this comes in a context where companies are struggling with recruitment, and you already mentioned that, but we are very much aware of it in the Commission, many of which are in the services sector. So you are sometimes not finding the right skills, and this can be indeed the root cause for some of these situations. So the last Eurobarometer that we had on skills, there we identified that over 75% of SMEs find it difficult to find workers with the right skills, and this of course impacts innovation, productivity and growth. So in this context, we know that vocational education and training can be key in addressing these skill shortages. And this can be achieved in many ways. First, by making sure that there is the training offer that the labor market requires, by making use of skills intelligence tools and cooperating with social partners and businesses to identify these training needs. And there you can envisage many ways of doing this. Second, by making sure young people about to choose learning pathways, and also adults that may want or need to upskill and reskill are aware of the job opportunities certain learning pathways can bring. And this can be achieved with solid guidance systems, both embedded in education and training systems and employment services, in cooperation, of course, with businesses. And finally, to make that really effective, work-based learning programs are the most effective. We know that they are the ones that have higher rates of labor market integration after the programs. And this, of course, requires very close cooperation with businesses that need to make available places and also resources for teaching and learning on the job in cooperation with training institutions. So these are my first insights, but I would be glad to participate in the panel later to give you more details on what we are doing at EU level. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna. I think it's great to hear that it is about collaboration, and it's interesting to hear that you also see that work-based programs have good results as well. So if I now can just introduce very quickly the panel that is joining us today. We have Thomas Wimsberger, who is a policy advisor at the EU Representation Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. Diana Philipp, who is a Deputy CEO and Chief Development Officer at Junior Achievement. Raymond Leiner, who is our Jobs and Skills Committee Chair at Eurocommerce, also at SPA. Anna, who you have just heard speak, and Amy, who was on our floor just earlier. So if I may have a very quick round, just so that we can also alert the audience that we have some time reserved for questions. So please feel free to send these through the platform, and we will hopefully have some time to pick these up. But Thomas, if I may just start with you then. It'd be interesting to understand from your perspective how at your level and where you're coming from at WKO, how you are involved in the development process of vocational education curricula. Is it something that's particularly challenging? And what is it from the company perspective that perhaps makes it a little bit more challenging?
So thanks for having me. You know, in Austria, the dual education system is traditionally very strong. Many young people choose this path, which is positive. And where we come in, social partners traditionally have a very strong role in the process of creating apprenticeship schemes, and also in creating the curricula, updating them regularly. So usually, if we hear from, for example, from our companies that they need a certain qualifications, we can talk with our counterparts, with the Chamber of Labor, the trade unions, and also the ministries, whether it's necessary to create a new scheme. And the negotiation mostly takes place between social partners, and the ministry is also on the table, but their job is mostly to rubber stamp what we decided then. And we think that it's a very good way just to be flexible. For example, a couple of years ago, there was a need to do more in e-commerce. So we negotiated an apprenticeship scheme in e-commerce management. And this has had a huge uptake now. We have tripled in the numbers in a couple of years. It's challenging, as everybody who's involved in social partner discussions knows. It's very challenging in the sense that it takes a long time. You don't have any quick wins, but I think in the end, everybody is satisfied usually, and that's what's most important. We, of course, have different interests in the sense that our companies want more specialized profiles. In general, the trade unions want more general ones so that people can move easier between the sectors, and we have to strike a compromise. But the good thing is that for us, and we represent our members, every Austrian company is a member of the Austrian Economic Chamber, they have got a direct way of addressing what they need. So if they think, okay, we need a new profile in e-commerce, they have a direct way of telling it to those who decide in the end. And yeah, that's a very good way. And it also it's also what Anna said. It's about cooperation in the end. You can't do any top-down things. It has to be together.
Thank you, Thomas. And if I can just ask you one just small follow-up question as well. I mean, you mentioned a lot of the interaction also with governments and the social partners working together, but do you have a lot of interaction with small businesses as well?
Yeah, so we represent all Austrian businesses. So whenever whichever member of us wants to talk with us can address it. And we also have got a system of internal coordination. So if small businesses come and they suggest something, we always need to give larger companies also the way to say their part, to express their opinion, and then we form an internal opinion within the Austrian Economic Chamber. So there's never, on the other hand, it's never that large companies can suggest things and SMEs don't have a say. So it's always everybody who can speak in.
Thank you. It's good to hear that it's a very large and collective process. What I also just wanted to say, what I found very interesting what you said is the flexibility that you have to adapt to change. And I presume also the drive in e-commerce was also linked very much to what we saw during the pandemic with shops being closed. And I think actually what Christelle may not have mentioned is that from the Eurocommerce perspective, we also see that 90% of growth will be driven by online by 2030. So it is, of course, very important that there is this flexibility. And this brings me very nicely to Diana and your work at the moment as well, because you're working on quite an exciting project. Let's say it's called Skills for Retail, which is a forward-looking approach that aims to also accelerate the transition that the retail and wholesale sector is going through. So I wondered if you can tell us a little bit more about where did the idea come from? And why is this program unique and what is its real vocational educational training aspect? Please go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm Diana Philipp and I represent Junior Achievement, who are the largest education organization in Europe. We work with over 70,000 schools and vocational schools across Europe. So when we heard about the skill shortage, that there is a need to modernize training in the retail sector, and that there is no blueprint on the retail sector, we liked the challenge and we said, let's try to really build a stronger consortium that we can to put forward a proposal to the European Commission for a blueprint on skills for retail. So I'm pleased to see that we also have WKO and SPAR here on the panel, who are part of a consortium together with Eurocommerce. And we have 29 partners that we managed to bring around the table, representing 8 countries. 8 of them are private sector partners and 16 of them are NGOs, universities, vocational schools. So they will be all working together on this ambitious project, as you said, to fast track the triple transition in the retail sector. So we said, why not? Jumping on a big ambition, but at the same time, we really want to understand the needs. So a lot will be focused on the needs analysis, and WKO is helping us to lead that work inside the consortium to understand what are the needs out there before we come and propose the kind of content and curriculum that we want to see for the vocational training. And that one will be done also by experts from SkillsNet Ireland and all the vocational training institutions involved in the consortium, because we really wanted to bring the best expertise around the table in order to really tackle the needs that are out there in the retail sector. So I'm very excited for these 4 years to come on this project, because I saw a great momentum when we kicked off the project at the beginning of September, and everyone really saw the need on working in this project. We focus on 3, when we said that the triple transitions, on 3 key elements. One was building resilience, because we know that after COVID, the sector had been highly impacted. So we wanted to make sure we really build the necessary skills to have strong resilience for the sector and for the people being trained. We focus on digital because we know there is a need for online communication, online entertainment, online shopping, using new technologies, bringing AI into it, and all this in order to really be much more equipped for the skills that are needed. And of course, we focus on the green. We need to reduce the carbon footprint and trying to integrate the green aspect inside the proposal. So we will be really looking at a revolutionary program that will hopefully transform in a way the vocational school system, looking at the triple transitions and coming up with modular courses that will be integrated with the vocational school system, that will also be able to be run separately, individually, and also will be certified at the end. So you will say it's a big ambition, but we don't want to do it alone. We will be building a European Skills Alliance. We would like to have representatives from the sector in all the countries in Europe, not only in the 8 that have participated in the project. So I'm very grateful for being invited on this call, because it's really an open call also for everyone who's been interested to join forces, to reach out to us, to see how they can contribute and be part of this ambitious project that we set out here.
Thank you, Diana. It's great to hear that it's all again about collaboration and working together. And it's quite ambitious, as you say, to try to get everybody around the table. And maybe now I can just turn to a slightly different perspective. And Raymond, I can bring you in. You're the chair of the Eurocommerce Jobs and Skills Committee, which deals with a lot of social affairs on behalf of our members. Can you share some insights on, from your perspective, from an employer's perspective, what actions can be taken to enhance the quality and the perception of vocational education and training schemes?
Okay, thank you, Lina. First of all, I would like to build on what Diana said, because there is one, we should also look at the things that are really on the right track. And I think that the program Pact for Skills is really fantastic, because it really will enable us to unify education within the European Union and to build blueprints for retail. That's very important. And I want to bring up another program I really appreciate. It's Erasmus, that really allows us to have an international exchange in Europe and bring people together within Europe. But there are things we would like to see to have more. Of course, maybe it's a point of view from Austria, but I think that the dual apprenticeship training that is done in Austria is really a good model, and we could learn from it, and we could copy it in the other European countries. And another thing I would like to see is maybe a kind of certificate. If you are a store manager, you are able to do a graduation in a store manager certificate that allows you to work and travel through the European Union. And each employee knows what you know. So you have qualifications that are in connection with the blueprint. And so it would be much easier for retailers, for example, to hire people from different countries within the EU. So I think what we would like to see is more unified and more education that really builds in a common scheme, so that we are enabled to use the workforce within Europe. And I think it should be the aim as European Union, that we allow our employees to travel through Europe and to start their jobs or do their jobs wherever they want. So these are the things we would like to see as retailers, just to mention some of the aspects.
Thank you, Raymond. I think it's interesting to also hear that without mentioning the word single market is what you were implying. And I'm sure probably Anna might be able to come in with a few things that are already in the back of the Commission's mind about how you can use the single market to sort of help companies and build the bridges between the people that are coming through education and being able to represent their what they've achieved and how it can be used and understood by other employers. So Anna, if I may just turn again to you as well. And one of the things that we also hear is that vocational education as a route is not necessarily always considered the most prestigious. There are certain perceptions of it that perhaps aren't as positively perceived, even though, as Raymond has just said, that there are great schemes that exist there in the EU. So I wondered what your perception is as well, and what strategies are being employed at the EU level to increase this perception. I mean, this week is one, I'm sure, but please go ahead and let us know.
Thanks. No, indeed. I mean, I think the first step is to put forward the data, and we try to do this with all the publications that we release, be it the Education and Training Monitor, the Joint Employment Report, and so on and so forth. And data shows that VET leads to job opportunities, and this is based on evidence. Almost 80% of VET recent graduates find a job quickly, with even a higher percentage for those who engaged in work-based learning or apprenticeship programs. So compared to other academic upper secondary students, this is an advantage. And so we try to raise awareness on this, of course, but at our level, it's also difficult to act because we have little competence in this area. So what we try to do is to encourage others to act, and this means communications campaigns, basically. They are important. Since 2016, we are running the European Vocational Skills Week, and it's about raising awareness of the possibilities of vocational education and training in terms of learning, that vocational education and training can also lead to higher learning opportunities, but also in terms of jobs, as we were saying. And there is a new dimension of this. So us communicating in events like this and encouraging EU stakeholders to organize events and so on and so forth. But the key element of this is the national, regional, and local stakeholders, because those are the ones that are closer to the citizen. They are closer to young people through education and training institutions. They are closer to adults looking for a different job, to upskill and reskills, and they are the ones that can really communicate to the citizen what is the labor market demanding, how can you get those skills through VET, and these actions can be really effective. We encourage all these organizations working on the ground to reflect what they are doing in our communication campaign, so they can upload their events and info sessions on the map we have available, that it's now combined with the European Year of Skills activities, just to give visibility and encourage everybody to join forces and work on this. Now, of course, there is an additional element of our policy priorities now, the digital transition, the EU Green Deal, and we know that VET can really be instrumental in delivering the skills needed to make the transition happen on the ground. And this can also be an element of attractiveness also for young and adults to engage in training. Last but not least, we are also promoting the concept of vocational excellence. So vocational education and training is not second chance. This can really lead to excellence, to innovation, be key in local business and skills ecosystems. And we are promoting these, funding networks of centers of vocational excellence at EU level that can cooperate on specific topics and sectors, and make vocational education and training really modern and fit to deliver the best skills for these needs that the labor market is asking for.
Thank you, Anna. I think obviously maybe it's a little plug to show you the numbers that we're talking about in retail and wholesale. I think you're probably well aware, but it's 26 million people. So I'm hoping as the first private employer, there's obviously some attention being drawn to this sector that really probably can provide that bridge. So it's very interesting to also hear this bottom-up approach, and also how it is also forward-looking. I mean, I think we are very aware that the change and the way that retail is changing is so fast and so rapid that it's important that things are able to take advantage and look ahead as well. Attractiveness as well, I think, is certainly one of the issues that we also have. I think from the perspective of retail and wholesale, it's not seen as the major opportunities that perhaps we would like it to have. So it's interesting to hear as well that everybody can work together to improve attractiveness. So if I may now turn to Amy, and obviously you mentioned at the beginning of this webinar that civil society is playing really a crucial role in shaping policies and advocating for the needs of people. So I wondered if you could just elaborate a little bit on any of initiatives or recommendations that you are working on, particularly for skill development in vocational education and training, and also other activities of European Movement International.
Yes, of course. Thank you for your question. It was very interesting to hear, especially what Anna was saying, because that ties up with a lot of things that we've been talking about at EMI. So attractiveness, enhancing attractiveness, but also the changing of the mindset. So I'm going to let you know a little bit what we have been up to. So we are very committed to advocating for policies and initiatives that support indeed VT, lifelong learning, the development just of a highly skilled workforce. So maybe I'll talk about two of our most recent initiatives. First, in partnership with Metro AG, we organized a series of 3 roundtables on the topic of indeed labor shortages in Europe and the consequences these may have on specific economic sectors in Europe and around the globe, where we are very happy to have also Eurocommerce participating to them. And those sessions brought together social partners, civil society, policy experts from think tanks and academia, as well as EU institutions. So we're very happy to have some people from the Commission also who participated. And we developed a report that I have here that, really took the key takeaways and recommendations and very much echo the recommendations that Anna talked about on comms campaigns to change mindsets to establish a culture of lifelong learning. Another recommendation that stemming from that report was really the need to ensure a better match between workers and available jobs. So for instance, through the enhancing of mobility programs, of course Erasmus, but others across member states, also through bilateral agreements, putting in place a talent pool, while making sure that it would not lead to a brain drain, offering quality apprenticeships, mentorships, quality traineeships, something that the European Youth Forum, one of our members, is very much pushing for it and that we wholeheartedly support. Also providing career guidance for the youth before but also after their labor market entry. And lastly, of course, investing in education and vocational training. Maybe I'll stop there for this specific report, even though we had other recommendations also tackling the green and digital transitions. But I'll talk about another one of our initiatives. So it's a policy position that we developed at EMI on post-pandemic recovery in Europe, where we very much focused on education as well as skills. I'll focus on VET, considering this is our main topic of interest today. Here we really called for continuation of vocational education as a response to structural changes in the labor market. And we called once again for the EU to step up investments in the sectors, and especially in the exchange of apprentices across Europe. So multi-stakeholder fora, such as the European Alliance for Apprenticeship, need to be strengthened, adequately funded at the EU level. And more broadly, the EU needs to ensure that member states are allocating sufficient funding to inclusive, high-quality education, training, and upskilling interventions. And maybe my last word would be on something that we've been advocating for quite a long time, that the EU should always use a broad definition of education that goes beyond formal education in schools and universities. And it should take further steps to increase the official recognition of non-formal and informal education, so that really those experiences can be truly used for career development. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems like it's been quite busy in a lot of projects that you've covered with obviously this year of skills as well as a good way to look at where the labour market shortages are and actually what's needed as well. So thank you for that. I just want to now just turn before we come to questions from the audience, and it is a reminder now to those that are listening as well to please to add your questions, and we will take some time to respond to you. But if I can turn to our panelists again, and just having listened to everything that has been said, what do you think that the EU could do to support associations or companies in developing more vocational education and training schemes? And maybe if I start with Thomas.
Thank you. So I think my message would be just to all the institutions involved, like to build on what's already there. It's to not forget when we're talking about VET that we've got many countries and we've got very diverse schemes, and these are long traditions, and there are reasons usually why it's done the way it's done. And I think, for example, Anna and DG Ample in general, we don't need to tell them that. They know the different schemes or systems, but now that this, which is a good thing, the topic of skills has become a very, very horizontal topic. Many people are involved, more people than before, and they need also to develop the necessary sensibility for the diversity of the systems.
Thank you. I think diversity is definitely something I can hear in your answers. So maybe I can also turn to Diana now as well. And I wonder what, from your perspective, especially I know that you're at the beginning of a big project as well, that what's made you realize in the process what's needed?
Well, first of all, I think putting the spotlight on skills and having this year the European Year of Skills is definitely helped a lot, and is really connecting the industry with the vocational schools and the world of education. And maybe that's something I wanted to say. We really appreciate when the European Commission in the funding scheme of Erasmus really called out that in each country where you implement activities, you have to have industries and educational players as well. So in the 8 countries where we have 8 private sector partners and 8 vocational schools and academia, in order to be able to close the gap between the two, because that's really key, to make sure that the world of work and the world of education really understands what are the gaps out there and what the educational system needs to do in order to get young people trained for the future of jobs. We know that there are a lot of opportunities and challenges out there, but I think by suggesting this kind of collaborations in very concrete with the different funding schemes, that has been very good move forward, and it's really helping engaging the academia, although it takes much longer to get them, to convince them to join, but we did manage, and I think that we see that this is a great model to be replicated in the future. And another one where I think we need support from the EU is to allow for flexibility in the school system, to really adopt new modernized curriculum in order to allow for what's out there in the world of work and what are the needs that they need to adapt the new programs. So if programs that are coming, Skills for Retail would be one, but many others that are coming out of these blueprints, if afterwards can be integrated into the curriculum, then we will see much more pickup and much more young people being ready and prepared for the world of work, and will have the necessary skills, because when we are designing this new program, we are really designing for the needs that are out there in the world of work. And what I didn't mention before, it's outside these Skills for Retail, we also anticipate to see young people placed into jobs. So we want to see this close collaboration much stronger between the world of education and the world of work. And I really like also what Anna was saying, all the focus put on recognition, on the relevance, on the collaboration. It's really good. And I'm grateful because European Commission already came to us and they said there are some partners that wants to join Skills for the Retail, have a chat with them, and we were really, really pleased to see how we can integrate them and collaborate with them as well. So I think this kind of recognitions, communication campaigns, and as you mentioned, really putting the spotlights of the good practices, that's great as well. So probably I could go on, but I think these are some of the key elements I wanted to spot out, because it's really making a difference.
Great. No, I think it's important, as you say, it's a dialogue, and it sounds like a very hands-on process that having to speak and maybe not so much convince, but just raising awareness. So I think it sounds like a big effort, but definitely worth it. So that these parallel tracks of education and what the world of work will continue as doesn't continue in parallel, they come together. So it's very interesting to have these insights. I wondered, Anna, I don't know if you have any reflections on what you've just heard and sort of recommendations. Let's say there's a bit of a wish list towards the Commission. Feel free to share some thoughts now, and then we can quickly move to some questions we're getting in from the audience.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting points. Many things point to some of our activities, things that we are already doing. I mean, we also need to be aware that at EU level, as we don't have competence in terms of education and training, we have a limited number of tools. So we can put forward policy guidance to share our vision so people can follow, developing useful tools and evidence that could be of use for practitioners, facilitating the sharing of experience and making funds available. And I think we have worked in all these dimensions so far. I would point to 3 key tools that I think are worth sharing with our participants so they can maybe feel inspired and follow these networks and projects. So first is the European Alliance for Apprenticeships. Some people already mentioned in the discussion. It's a network that comprises education and training providers, businesses, social partners, policymakers, cooperating all towards providing more and better apprenticeships. And we organize workshops, webinars, events, and I think it's a useful source for cooperation, EU cooperation, and also for knowledge sharing. So I encourage you to join. Then we have, of course, the Pact for Skills, also mentioned. It's about joining forces so we can upskill and reskill the workforce in key industrial sectors. So that's it. Also worth checking out because it's a good source for cooperation in the sector. And then the Centers of Vocational Excellence. So I mentioned that these are international networks of vet centers, businesses, research, universities working together on a specific fields. It could be water management, industry 4.0, urban greening, but also the commerce sector. And we have regular calls every year under the Erasmus Plus program guide. So you could check them out and see if this could be a useful avenue for your sector. And of course, check out all the funding opportunities that are on the table, not only Erasmus Plus, but also the European Social Fund and the Recovery and Resilience Facility are investing a lot on vocational education and training programs, but these are managed at national and regional level. So you should check out the funding opportunities at the level of the national authorities and see if there is anything that could be of use for your sector at that level, because the amounts of investments through these tools are really very significant. So that would be my suggestion. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna. And maybe if I may, because one of the things that you mentioned just then is that there is money available, there is support available, but also what we sometimes hear on the Eurocommerce side as well is a concern that these are a minefield to understand, particularly when you get down to the regional and the local level. And I wondered if there was anything that is working now to try and ease that barrier, or it's only happening really at the national level. And one thing that we also are quite interested in is that we obviously in our membership have a large number of national associations which then have the local connection, and we always feel that this connection at that local level would also help the people that may be looking, particularly the SMEs or the smaller companies as well, and not necessarily just the small, to help them understand where this money could come from, where they could actually take up opportunities like the Recovery and Resilience Fund. So I wondered what you were doing, or whether you had any reflections on that kind of, let's say, the local connection and how that could be built.
Yes, these are very interesting questions. So on the first one, in terms of simplification, Well, just for you to understand, these tools, like the Recovery and Resilience Facility and the European Social Fund, they are negotiated with member states, the main areas of investment at EU level, but then it's really up to the member state to define how to make them happen on the ground. And sometimes it's not even for the national authorities, but the regional or the local, depending on the type of interventions that they are envisaging, and also on the governmental setup of each country. So we have indeed embedded some simplification rules and philosophy in the regulations at EU level, but it's also very difficult to manage and to see what they are really doing on the ground under these rules, because of course we need to make sure that they comply with our regulation, but then there are other decisions that are really up to them, and we know that unfortunately sometimes it's quite difficult, and it could be a bit daunting for an individual, a small company to understand everything that it's required. But your second question was very, very interesting. I think there could be some space at national level to make this support available. Indeed, I mean, this is something we are not doing at EU level, and I don't think an EU organization working on the sector would be the best place either, because every system in every country is different. So there should be really someone at national level being able to explain how these tools are being deployed, and what would be the opportunities first for SMEs, because not everything is available to SMEs or to companies. Sometimes the target groups are NGOs or public organizations, so it really depends on the tool. But this is indeed it would be a very useful tool to put this service available for SMEs through the chambers of commerce or through associations that are well placed. And in this respect, you could even approach the managing authorities of these funds in the member states to talk about it, and maybe they can help you understand what opportunities are available and how to trickle down the details for the SMEs in practice. And there may be even some funding available to provide this service. So I encourage you to explore, but the contact points should be the managing authorities of these funds in the member state at national and regional level.
Thank you, Anna. I think you've given us some homework there, and I think many of our members are aware of this, but it shows that more needs to be done to, let's say, not have the parallel tracks again, where you have funding being potentially available, but the people that can help shape exactly what it could be used for, not having that dialogue that we've also we've pushed for. I mean, obviously as well, it's very important that the idea and the perception as well is quite interesting of retail and wholesale. And Raymond, I don't know if you wanted to just bring in something on this point as well about how it can also drive forward a conversation about opportunities that may not be appreciated in retail and wholesale. I think you just need to unmute, Raymond, sorry.
I did it. Yeah, thank you for the question. It's about the reputation of retail. As I see it, we are, of course, in competition with other industries. And retail really, to some extent, still suffers from a bad image. And I think we could have ideas, or we could do something about it, and we could start, I don't know, some initiatives in order to promote retail. Retail is not only a part where you can do vocational training, it's also a sector where you could do your own business. You could become a retailer your own. We have 700 retailers in Austria, and they are quite successful. So that's just another aspect I wanted to stress. Beside the education, vocational training, it's about the industry. So how can we really promote retail as a good employer and as an attractive industry? Yeah. So I don't know if you have any ideas or comments on that.
Thank you. Amy, perhaps you can take the floor. Do you have a comment on this one?
Yes. Actually, so as I mentioned, we did like those several roundtables where we had people from the industry coming in. We kind of really tackling this problem of job attractiveness and how to retain the workers because, well, I mean, we know the circumstances. I mean, it was not only about wholesale and retail, even though there was also like, but I think there are commonalities that could potentially also work. So we came up with some recommendations also stemming from this discussion. On how indeed to enhance the job attractiveness. And for example, there was a recommendation or an advice to really diversify job offers, provide more flexibility, provide formal, non-formal trainings, short and long trainings, really adopt a targeted approach to the more vulnerable workers and those less likely to take up trainings. And here, what was mentioned was like, for example, people coming from a migratory background, low-income workforce, young people, women, also elderly people. I think another recommendation was counting trainings as a paid working time. And also one other thing was to change the narrative on migration, both in the politics but also in the regulation to facilitate migrant integration.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think it's also perhaps then again more homework for us to ensure, and perhaps we could work together with the Commission on this, is to raise the profile a little bit of all the different types of opportunities that are out there, including, let's say, the ones that we've already mentioned. It's a vast number of youth employment, lots of flexibility, part-time work, also working with different communities and members of the communities to integrate them, whether it's migrants or those that may only want to do something on the other side of their education as well. So it's a huge mix, and we should be using this to our advantage. But maybe I can just, with it, before we come towards the final close, I heard that best practices in communication now is really, really the focus. And I think this week that we have is a really good opportunity to share this. So maybe on two fronts, having listened to what's been said, I mean, has anyone got any good ideas or what they've seen that they thought was a really good way to promote vocational education, or what perhaps has been done to really promote retail and wholesale as well as the opportunity that it presents? So Diana, I think you look like you're ready to come in.
I'm happy to come in on this because we've seen some great best practices when the retail get engaged into the education and really offer the opportunities you talked about before to the young people, because many times they do not know what are the different opportunities in a job or in a company. So that's why if we can go back and really show to them some of the campaigns that we've been doing across Europe, which proved to be very successful. We've done job shadow days where young people are going to shadow the employees on different days that they are running, and they explain the different kind of skills and jobs and different spectrums of opportunities that are in different companies. So that's one thing that really proved very, very successful, because it opened their eyes and really understands what the sector is offering. We also done reverse mentoring, in which we are getting young people to advise the companies. And that has also been very interesting, because you put them in the shoes of the employers, and then they think it through for themselves. This is something that I would like to do. I would like to practice. So I think engagement closer with the young people, so that they see those opportunities young, like when they are young, that's really, really helpful. And the earlier the better, because when it's too late, when they are at end vocational level or university level, it might be sometimes too late, because maybe they made up their mind. So engaging the companies as early as possible into the education system is really proved to be very successful for making sure we open those opportunities for the young people.
Thank you. I think this is a very good positive note perhaps to end on as well, before I pass over the floor ready for Christelle to sort of share her last few reflections. I mean, starting early, I think I see that the education already does start early, with people already talking, let's say, what do you want to be when you grow up? But actually seeing in practice what it could mean, and perhaps challenging the ideas and the presumption that something might not be for you, and involving companies is really a great way forward. And I think vocational education definitely has this potential. Also, if if its reputation can be built up and given its visibility, that certainly all this best practice exchange is heading in the right direction. So thank you, my panelists, for such an excellent and interactive discussion. I'm hoping that our audience has learnt quite a lot and is hopefully going away with some great ideas and knows where to contact us. Please do respond on LinkedIn and our websites to contact us if you have any follow-up questions. So Christelle, if I may pass over to you to close the session today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lina, and a very, very warm thank you to our panelists for a fascinating discussion. Fascinating discussion on how to build momentum, highlighting a real challenge, a business need, and the need to also help everyone through build resilience and invest in the digital and green transition. The discussion, as you have said, Lina, has highlighted a number of points. And if I can recap a few of them. First of all, the importance of raising awareness and building up the data sets to make informed decisions. Facilitating the exchange of experience between countries, between businesses, between organizations. Collaboration and working together is essential. No one will do this alone. Preparing young people better for the world of work has also come up as a key element in the discussion. Also, highlighting the diversity, inclusion, the opportunity of building experience abroad to enrich your curricula and transfer skills. Engaging companies early is also very important. And in doing this, we should be looking at both large and small businesses, because everybody is playing a key role in our economy. A specific word on the attractiveness of our sector, which was also highlighted as a challenge, and also perhaps as homework for us in Eurocommerce and together with our members. So being seen as an opportunity for career development is also quite a bit of a challenge. In retail and wholesale, the study that we did last year together with McKinsey, it highlighted that the challenge is particularly important. Not just because the sector is an important stakeholder in the European economy, but also the importance of the skills challenge to support the digital and sustainability transformation on the way. And the numbers are quite striking. Our sector altogether would need to invest up to 35 billion euros by 2030. It would have to reskill, upskill up to 13 million employees and hire 1.5 million new people every year to manage the transition. So the challenge is real big. I hope the webinar was only the beginning of the conversation, a conversation to be continued on anticipating and identifying the skills gaps, addressing the skills shortage, finding the funding necessary, and addressing other barriers. This is critical for the digital and sustainability transformation of our sector, but also altogether for the economy, for building resilience and strengthening our economic competitiveness. Again, I'd like to thank you all for your participation, and in particular our audience. We look forward to continuing to engaging with you and pursuing the dialogue. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Thank you.